everyone, I'm back today to film a video. Surprise! Today I'm going to focus my video on one specific author and one specific series. That is the Neapolitan Novels by Elena Ferrante, in which we have 4 books and the first one looks like this. So maybe you recognize it. It has been around on BookTube for quite a while. It is an adult series which takes place in Italy, in Naples, next to the volcano of Vesuvio, which has a very cool history to it. So right from the beginning I was interested to read this series, and now that I have, I would like to review it. First of all, let me show you the books. This is the first one, My Brilliant Friend, and the second one, The Story of a New Name. Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay is the third one, and then the fourth and final one is The Story of the Lost Child. And before I get into the actual story, I would like to point out that this is the Europa editions, and I really like them. I feel like this is good quality. It's paperback, but it has a nice, I don't know, it feels good in the hands, and it looks brilliant on the shelves, and the covers are stunning. I will say this is my favorite, and then this one is beautiful as well. But all in all, I'm just really happy about these editions, so I thought I would point that out as well. This series takes place in Italy, as I've already mentioned, and in the beginning of the first book we get a few pages about a woman named Elena, who is in her 60s and who suddenly realizes that her best friend Lila has completely disappeared from Earth, meaning that Lila's son is going to Elena to explain to her the situation and tell her that there are no traces of Lila whatsoever, which is a tragedy, of course. So they start searching for her, but as a reader we quickly realize that even though Elena and Lila are friends from childhood and then onwards, there are some tensions between them, because Elena decides to sit down and write down Lila's story, even though she knows that Lila does not want for that to happen. She has said so explicitly that Elena could never write about her life because she wants to just completely disappear from Earth and never be remembered. And Elena starts writing just because she wants to get some sort of revenge, which is where everything takes off. The first book is about their childhood. We get to know the 2 female characters and their backgrounds, and basically that's what happens in this book. You must know that when reading this series you cannot have too high expectations, just because I think personally the beauty of it lies between the lines. It's not a story full of action, it's more about descriptions about their childhood and their surroundings. But when you read on, you realize that there are so many hidden layers, which, as I said, is the beauty of this series. In the second book we get to follow them as they grow up to become adolescents. Tensions continue to grow between them. In the third book we get to follow them as they are adults and start their own families. And then the fourth and final book is the conclusion to their story, in which we get to know them as they become in their 60s, so from their adulthood to their old age, you could say. I like this series just because it was nice to read something that takes place in Italy, which teaches you about a different culture, and it was also nice to read a story which is so straightforward. You just read and you get to know these characters really, really well, but at the same time it is up to you to realize what is really going on between them, because it is not being said explicitly. You have to realize and try to figure out for yourself what is really going on. While reading them, I did think about the fact that some people might not like this series because of its content. There are a lot of things and themes in them which are kind of like trigger warnings. I'm not exactly sure I understand the concept of trigger warning, because I think it's when you don't want to read about certain things because you just don't like reading about them. And I think that this series has some of those things. I'm not going to say what it is just because I don't want to spoil you, but basically, in my opinion, just try and read them, even though you know you have some problems with certain aspects of life that you don't want to read about, because in my opinion, we read to educate ourselves. So even though we don't like reading about it, it can still teach us something. So I think it would be very interesting to just read the series and see where it takes you. Maybe you will get a better understanding of the characters and their situations. Last but not least, let me just tell you that I keep looking over here just because they're lying on my shelves, but let me just tell you that I read these 4 books in about a week, which tells you something about how easily they are read, because once you get started, you become immersed in the story, and I wanted to continue, so I did. It wasn't until the last book that I felt kind of like the story was fading out, and it became very much about reflections, which was good enough, but not just as good as the first 3 books, which is why I gave the first 3 books 4 stars and then the last one 3 stars. I definitely recommend this series. If you have any interest in it, please pick it up. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading.